Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests, with host Christina Nichman.
One of the easiest ways to allow natural healing is to put aside the toxic medications that we as a society have come to rely on. Millions of people are taking control of their health through the use of essential oils. Over the past 3 years, modern wellness has helped countless people across the globe learn how to use essential oils as their first line of defense. You can learn more on their website at modernwellness.com. Hello everyone, and welcome to Savvy Central Radio. This is your host, Christina Nichman. Each week on Savvy, we host successful individuals and business owners, inviting them to share their dreams, stories, wisdom, and lessons learned in their field of business. Our guest today is Dr. Daniel Twogood. Dr. Twogood began practicing in 1983 at the International Sport Medicine Institute in West Los Angeles, where he treated athletes in the 1984 Olympics. In 1985, he opened a private practice in Apple Valley, California. He discovered the diet-pain connection for himself in 1985 and wrote his first book, No Milk, in 1992. Since then, Dr. Twogood has penned a number of other books, from How to Rid Your Body of Pain, MSG is Everywhere, and his latest book, Chronic Pain Gone in 90 Days. To find out more about Dr. Daniel Twogood, visit his website at danieltwogood.com. Hi, Dr. Daniel Twogood. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio.
Hey, thanks very much for having me on.
Well, I'm excited to have you out today to share your journey and what led to your work. And you're going to be talking about something very important with a lot in my audience. Many people have come to me, and including myself, have dealt with chronic pain and autoimmune diseases late into our late 30s and 40s and onwards. So you've written a book on that, Chronic Pain Gone in 90 Days. And you're going to talk about your work on that subject, chronic pain, and penning your new book. Welcome to Savvy, and tell us a little bit about your work.
Well, I'm a chiropractor. I've been practicing since 1984, so that's 30 some odd years. And like all practitioners, I started off with great intentions to solve every case that came into my office. And I got pretty good results, but I learned the same thing that all practitioners learn, and that is that our techniques work really, really well for most cases, but they absolutely do not work for chronic pain. So when people are diagnosed with a chronic condition, that basically means they're not going to get better. And that's fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, chronic back pain, migraines, irritable bowel syndrome, scleroderma. There's a ton of different chronic inflammatory and chronic autoimmune diseases that don't respond to conventional or alternative medicine. So once I started seeing that I wasn't effective for these cases, I thought, okay, well, I have to do something. What can I do? So I started asking more questions and took off on a different path when I found out, what caused these chronic conditions. So once I found out, then it's like, okay, now I know which direction to go. And I started doing that back in 1991. That's 20 some odd years ago. And I thought everybody's going to learn this and it's going to be common knowledge real rapidly. But I've been on the air and promoting this and writing books for many, many years, and it's still not common knowledge. So that's why I'm on the air with you today.
Well, I'm very happy to have you share it, because I've noticed from my experiences with my friends and even with the audience I've spoken to that many in our nation are dealing with autoimmune issues and chronic pain starting, as I said, early in late 30s into 40s and later. And why is this? What have you found in your work?
Well, what I found is autoimmune diseases are chronic inflammatory diseases that are defined as diseases that are your body's immune system reacting against itself and causing conditions like scleroderma and lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, etc. But what I found is they are indeed chronic inflammatory diseases, but the human body is better built than that. It doesn't react against itself. So I actually have a chapter in my newest book, which is Chronic Pain Gone 90 Days, and the title of the chapter is Autoimmune Diseases Are Not. And what that means is they are not reactions against the body itself, but they are reactions. And the question is, what are they reactions to? Because many of these people who have the physical pain of arthritis and fibromyalgia and migraines, they can't really put their finger on what happened. Was it a physical event? Was it stress? What was it? And they can't figure out why the symptoms come and why the symptoms go away. I had those same questions, and when I started asking the right questions, I started to make the discoveries that are in the book. So It's all pain, whether it's chronic pain or a stubbed toe or lupus or fibromyalgia or migraines. All pain is caused by this process called inflammation. And you'll hear that a lot now, a lot of people talking about inflammation and chronic inflammation. Mm-hmm. Inflammation is your body's reaction to injury, stress, or infection. And these chemicals are produced that cause swelling, heat, redness, and pain. And that's where pain comes from. Mm-hmm. So the name of the game is to stop inflammation. The medical approach, of course, is to prescribe anti-inflammatory drugs. Mm-hmm. And so those are like Aleve, Advil, ibuprofen, aspirin. There's a ton of them on the market. Mm-hmm. Also, for people with lupus and those, they'll prescribe autoimmune suppressors like prednisone and Lyrica and the horrible drugs you see advertised on TV. They're trying to shut down the inflammatory response, and that is what we're trying to do. But the question is, what causes the inflammation? And what I've found is that if you eliminate the causes of inflammation, then the inflammation will go away on its own. And those are just like a doctor would have you swallow an anti-inflammatory substance. Mm-hmm. My discovery is there are very specific pro-inflammatory substances that are also swallowed that cause this inflammation that doesn't go away. And those substances are in foods, food additives, supplements, and medication.
Wow, that is very enlightening to me because I was diagnosed a number of years ago with Graves' disease, an autoimmune disease, which they basically told me won't get better. We can try to, when it flares up, give you anti-thyroid medication, and then if it doesn't get better and it continues to come back, we'll just have to remove or destroy your thyroid. And I was like, there's got to be a better option than destroying your thyroid or any part of your body, and it's really kind of frustrating. Now, why do you think that it's become such an uprise in our nation? I mean, it seems to me that there's more and more people getting these type of things today.
Right, and there's a vast increase in it, and there is a logical explanation for that too. It's basically what we're doing to our foods and how we're over-medicating people. So, all of my work is based on a very simple concept, and that is that the human body is a very, very well-built organism. It will heal itself. You've seen it. Everybody's seen it thousands of times. When you cut yourself or burn yourself or sprain an ankle or even have a fracture, what happens? Your body is able to mend itself, put it back together again, and the pain goes away. So these cases of fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis that don't go away, the question is why? And so the answer is we are poisoning our systems with more and more artificial, genetically modified, and not natural substances that cause the body to have this inflammatory reaction. And so the sad thing is the mentality in this country is that if there is anything wrong with you, you have to add something. And if people are searching their brains, what can it be? And searching the internet. What do I need? Do I need a supplement? Do I need a vitamin? What medication is best? What do I need to add? Are there specific foods I need to add? And so when we go down that road, the answers are not found. The solution is, again, the body is really well built. It's not what to add, it's what to subtract. For example, if you were a lung doctor and a patient came in and said, "Hey, doc, I got this chronic cough, it won't go away. Do you have a cough suppressant for me?" And you look at his breast pocket and you see that he's got a pack of Camels in there. Well, it only makes sense that, you know what, it would be better to subtract the irritant to your cough than it would be to add a suppressor. So again, my approach is subtract. So in order to solve these cases of fibromyalgia and all these chronic inflammatory diseases, a lot of questions have to be asked. And I have to come to a conclusion about what substances I believe are causing these problems. And then it's a matter of eliminating them.
So really our focus in our nation has been more about eliminating the inflammation than focusing on what's really causing the inflammation.
Exactly. It's just like the analogy I use is if you and I are trying to put out a fire and I'm throwing buckets of water on it, which is anti-inflammatory, and you're throwing buckets of gasoline on it, that fire is not going to go out. The solution is not for me to throw more water on it. The solution is for you to stop throwing the gasoline on the fire, and then that fire will go out. So that's what all my work has been about these last 30 years, is finding out what these specific substances are, going over a patient's history and their diet and their medications and their supplements to ferret these things out. And then I make my best guesses based on my experience and say, okay, here's the things you have to eliminate. And then when you do that, the doctor doesn't do any more healing. The body does the healing. So you just have to get out of the way by eliminating these gasolines that are feeding the fire.
And I love these points you're making, because myself included and a number of my friends and people I know have gone on the path of taking medication or supplements or whatever it might be, trying to eliminate any chronic pain or autoimmune issues, and it makes it worse. And in some cases, my one friend said he had a number of other issues that came about due to the medication he was taking, which I don't think often we think about, where I think our society is kind of a quick fix mentality. I want it done like today, so just give me a quick pill and it'll all be over. But often taking medication makes the matter worse, because as you say, you're adding gasoline to the fire, and then you get other issues on top of the autoimmune and inflammation.
Right, and that's one of the issues that even medical doctors today are not willing to face. They have this faith that the medication they prescribe is gold and it will cure your problems and not cause any others. But if you watch primetime TV at night, most of the commercials, about 75% of them, are for drugs. And all of the commercials are basically the same. The first 10 or 15 seconds, they'll tell you how wonderful this drug is what it's going to do for you. The last 45 seconds to up to 2 minutes for Celebrex is all of the horrible side effects that might happen, and you better tell your doctor if you have them. And so these drugs are poisons, and so they may mask one symptom, but they're going to create another. So, the medication is one of the things we're going to talk about today as specific ones that cause problems.
And that brings me, and by the way, when you mentioned the commercials, it always makes me laugh when you see the commercials and they're skipping through fields with beautiful music in the background. May cause death. And I'm like,
Exactly. I always wonder, and my wife even says it, she says, who would take that pill if there's a possibility you're going to die or develop cancer?
Yeah.
But I understand the desperation that comes from people who haven't heard the message that I'm sharing today.
Yeah.
They're desperate. People with fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis are desperate because there's no answers. And so they have to be steered to this different path, and that's what I'm here to do today.
That's fabulous. And so explain for our audience, so I understand and they understand, what exactly causes chronic pain.
Okay, chronic pain, again, just like regular pain, is caused by inflammation.
Okay.
Inflammation is the beginning of healing, and in regular pain, like a stubbed toe, that inflammation hurts and swells and causes tenderness, but it proceeds to healing. In chronic pain, the inflammation is stuck on the inflammatory mode, and so your symptoms keep coming back or don't go away. So the answer is to eliminate the pro-inflammatory substances that are causing the inflammation. And so there are only, if a doctor treats you, the doctor is not going to say, after they test you and find out what they think is wrong with you, they're not going to say, I want you to go take some pills. The doctor doesn't say that. The doctor says, I want you to take these very specific pills at a specific dose. In fact, I'm going to write it down, I'm going to send it to the pharmacy, and they're going to give you exactly what I am prescribing. Same thing here. I don't tell people to become a vegan or to eat only organic foods or whatever. It's basically, here are the very specific substances that are contributing to your inflammation and causing it actually, and the solution is to eliminate them. So to get to the causes, I've seen a lot of these people talk on the radio, etc., about chronic pain, and they never get to the answer. It's like, oh, that's an interesting theory, but what do I do today, doc, if I suffer with fibromyalgia or migraines? I'm going to tell you exactly what you can start doing today to get rid of chronic pain in 90 days. And that sounds like an oxymoron, chronic pain gone 90 days. But if you look at healing, that's how healing does. It usually heals well before 90 days, but sometimes it takes 90 days. But if you remove the interference, then healing will happen. So I'll start right at the top and tell you that, and I want your listeners to know too, that everything I'm sharing with you is based on observation. I didn't make any of this up. If you walk into a dark room that you've never been in before and you stumble around and you bump up against the light switch and it turns on and you see light, and when you push it down it goes off, you don't know anything about electricity, but you know that if you push that button up, the light comes on, push it down, the light goes off. That's what's happened with me with chronic pain. So the most common cause of chronic inflammatory disease, no matter where it is in your body, is a specific protein called casein, C-A-S-E-I-N.
It's in cheese,
Casein
right?
is casein is the main protein found in milk and dairy foods. And as you know, that's a huge standard, a huge pillar of the standard American diet. We've been told for many, many years that milk is essential for health. You're not going to have strong bones. You're not going to grow properly if you don't consume cow's milk. But actually, the opposite is true. So I'm very specific. Like I said, the reason I use the word casein is because most dairy foods have protein, carbohydrate, and fat. They have all of those things, but casein is the main protein in milk and cheese and yogurt and ice cream and cottage cheese and ranch dressing and blue cheese and all the dairy foods. So the reason I say casein is because there are some non-dairy foods like coffee creamers and protein shakes that say non-dairy that contain a substance called sodium caseinate. There's that word casein again with ATE on the end. That's the gasoline that feeds the inflammation. So in order to eliminate most cases of chronic pain, you've got to eliminate all sources of casein, which is milk and dairy foods, and all non-dairy foods that contain caseinate. And the key is you have to eliminate them 100% because this is an allergen, and any little bit will set off a reaction. I want to be clear, too, that not everybody is sensitive to this protein. But if you take all of the people who have chronic conditions that aren't healing, more than half of them will get relief if they eliminate casein and caseinate. So that's how we start the list. That's the most common cause of most cases of fibromyalgia, headaches, irritable bowel syndrome, etc.
Wow. Okay. And the next one on the list?
Well, here's another observation. Everybody who reacts to casein and caseinate also reacts to chocolate, only the reaction is worse. Chocolate is undoubtedly the most popular pro-inflammatory substance, and that really bums people out because a lot of people will now say, well, wait a second, I only eat dark chocolate. Because of the literature that's been put out there by the chocolate industry, they somehow believe that dark chocolate is this magical health food. But I can tell you that it's not. It's a very powerful pro-inflammatory substance that very powerfully causes all of these symptoms, or can cause them if you have a sensitivity to them.
Wow. Well, that's news to me because chocolate is I'm the biggest fan of chocolate. It's probably the number one thing I have at least once a day, every day. So that's good for people out there. Now, I know milk, for a lot of people I know, and dairy products tend to be a problem after 30 or so. Are there any other particular foods that people should stay away from that can cause inflammation?
Yes, when we talk about the new onset of more and more disease processes in the last 20, 30 years, pro-inflammatory substances are rampant in food additives. And the next one on the list, now my list, which is explained in the book, goes down from the most common down to the least common. But there's only like 6 or 7 substances. And so the first ones are casein in dairy foods, caseinate in non-dairy foods, and chocolate. The next one is a food additive that's been around since 1948, and it's called MSG, or monosodium glutamate. A lot of people have heard of it, and a lot of people say they never touch it. But I wrote a book about it in 1997 called MSG is Everywhere, and I called it that because MSG is everywhere. It's in lots and lots of processed foods. It's in Chinese food. It's in breading. It's in soups. It's in broths. Most restaurants use some, and some restaurants use a lot. So a lot of people aren't aware of it, but it's out there, and it causes symptoms not only like chronic pain, but also panic attacks, mood changes, heart palpitations, mysterious bruises. Again, these are all symptoms I've seen in my practice. TV dinners, and a lot of people who are on diets to lose weight, they're using Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig or any one of those frozen dinners like Lean Cuisine. Those dinners have tons and tons of MSG in them, which is a nerve toxin. So, bummer, huh?
Yeah, really surprising for me is right before I got diagnosed with Graves' disease, I had lost a good bit of weight. I started working out regularly and lost about 25, 30 pounds and was eating Lean Cuisine every single day. And when I went to the doctor, one thing that spiked besides getting diagnosed with Graves' disease was they said, wow, you have high blood pressure. How much salt do you eat? I said, oh, not much. You know, because besides the Lean Cuisine I was having every day for lunch, the rest of the food I made at home didn't have any salt in it. But then they asked probing questions, and then when they got to the point, like, what are you having for lunch? And I said, Lean Cuisine. Well, that's it.
Exactly.
1,500 to 1,000 milligrams of salt, and I had no idea that it was also MSG.
Right, and wow. The hard part about MSG is that it goes by lots of different names. They hide it under names like hydrolyzed protein, yeast extract, autolyzed yeast, protein isolate, which is in most protein shakes. So it's out there, and it's a nerve toxin, and it's very similar in structure to another nerve toxin called aspartame. Aspartame is NutraSweet or equal. It's what they use in most diet sodas, in almost all chewing gum, and in low sugar foods. It's also a nerve toxin and should be avoided. So those two kind of go together, MSG and aspartame. So they're both nerve toxins that can cause chronic conditions.
Wow. And for anyone out there who's going through these particular ailments or chronic pain, what are some things folks can do today to get started to start reversing, this in their body? Now, I'm guessing stay away from these things you mentioned, but is there any other actions they can take?
Well, actually, there is no shortcut. Just like if you cut yourself, how can you make that cut go away today? Well, you can start making it go away today by keeping it clean and bandaged, etc. But it's not going to go away in a day. So the solution is to stop feeding the inflammation. And so in my book, Chronic Pain Gone 90 Days, it's a very easy to read book. And in the first 3 minutes of reading the book, you'll know exactly what you have to do. I start the book with the 10 steps. Here's the 10 things you need to do in order to stop inflaming your system. And they are, and I'll go right down the list for you. Casein is the first thing to eliminate in milk and dairy foods. Caseinate in non-dairy foods. Chocolate, the most powerful cause of pain. MSG and aspartame in processed foods and TV dinners. And the next one is very popular right now. It's another allergen, and it's further down on my list, you'll see, because it's not as common as the others, even though it's very popular, and that's gluten. Gluten is the main protein in wheat products. And probably 10 to 15% of the patients I see with chronic conditions, gluten is a factor, but it's not nearly as common as the ones I mentioned before. And then the last one on the list is medications, and especially the statin drugs, which are being prescribed very heavily now for any kind of high normal cholesterol. The cholesterol pills like simvastatin, lovastatin, Zocor, Lipitor, Mevacor, Pravachol destroy muscle tissue in the process of lowering your cholesterol. So they cause lots and lots of side effects like leg cramps, weakness in the legs, etc. So, the 10 things to do, which I just mentioned what they are. There's some other things like keep moving and don't stay out of restaurants for 90 days until you find out what's causing your problems. Then I have a little part called the good news. And the good news is that you don't have to be this strict forever. Most patients find out that it's only one or two of these things that cause their flare-ups. And if they stay away from chocolate or the dairy or the gluten or the MSG, whatever it is, that solves their problem. So, but the way to get started is to follow the instructions in the book for 90 days, which is 3 months, and you will get to the point where you're pain-free well before that 90 days. Then you can start experimenting with your diet and find out what things are feeding your inflammation and what things are not.
Wow. Thank you so much. Those are awesome points. And why do you think, because you've been in this industry in medicine for a long time, why has conventional medicine not been very effective in helping patients resolve chronic pain or even look to even changing the way they deal with chronic pain now?
Well, that's a very good question. And the analogy I use is all of us, I don't think any doctor out there is not trying his or her hardest to solve these problems. The problem is, and when we look at chronic conditions like lupus and fibromyalgia and migraines, everybody's looking for the needle in the haystack. And they're looking really hard, and they're trying really hard, and they have really great instrumentation to look for that needle in the haystack. The problem is the needle is not in the haystack. So they're never going to find it. And what people find who have chronic disorders, when they go to the doctor, when they come to see me afterwards, after they've been to lots of doctors, I'll ask them the question, did your doctor ever ask you what you eat? And the answer is always no. They never did. And so for some reason, conventional medical doctors, they're versed in all kinds of cures, etc. But when you ask them about diet, in fact, I actually had one patient who had digestive disorders and fibromyalgia. And so I said, well, did the doctor ask you what you eat? She goes, actually, he did. I said, really? So you told him? He said, yes. And so did he give you any advice? And she said, yes. He said to go eat healthy. And she said, and I said, well, what does that mean? She goes, well, I asked him the same question. She said, what do you mean eat healthy? And he said, Google it. If you can believe that. So doctors have no idea. And that really blows me away because Actually, if you go to any medical doctor, what they're going to do is analyze you and check you and do tests, etc. And what are they going to do? They're going to have you swallow something. They know that if they prescribe something very specific and you swallow it, it's going to have an effect. So why aren't their minds open to the fact that if you swallow other things, it's also going to have an effect? And if you don't think that's true, swallow a bunch of alcohol and see if that has an effect on your nervous system. Swallow a bunch of anything, and you'll see that it has caffeine. You'll see that it has an effect. But my discovery is there are these specific substances, which I've just mentioned in foods and food additives, that are pro-inflammatory. They're just the opposite of the pills these guys and these women are prescribing. So the answer is, like we talked about with the gasoline and the water on the fire, stop the inflammation by avoiding these things. And that's the solution to these problems. And so the reason they're not getting there is because they're not asking what people eat. And I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I'm very well experienced at it. But once I turn a patient away from the haystack to start looking at their diet and their medications and their supplements, they start making more discoveries for themselves. Because when a patient wakes up with back pain or a migraine, they almost never said, gee, what did I eat? What they usually say is, gee, what did I do? Did I sleep wrong? Did I do something physical? What did I do? More of the answers are going to be found in what did you eat? And that's where we look here in this book.
And that recalls for me, I talked to an ex-med student, and they said that they only get one semester or like one class in nutrition. So it would make sense that they don't first think, doctors, to go straight to what's going on with your nutrition and your food.
Right, but the problem with that is, though, same thing, even in chiropractic school, we get more nutrition, but I never heard anything about what I'm sharing with you today. Oh. It's more about vitamins and minerals, and if you go to a conventional dietitian or nutritionist, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about vitamin, minerals, supplements. They never talk about the specific foods that you need to avoid in order to cause problems. The closest they come is saying, well, here's some foods that might be anti-inflammatory, like pineapple or turmeric. So try those things. But again, that's putting more water on the fire, which could be slightly helpful, but not if you're still throwing gasoline on the fire. So the solution is to find these specific substances and eliminate them. So the book I wrote is called Chronic Pain Gone 90 Days, and you can get it on Google Apps. You can get it in iBooks. You can get it in Kindle and Nook. So if you read the book, it's very simple to understand, and it'll answer your questions about what causes chronic pain and how to get rid of it in 90 days.
That's awesome. And if anyone wants to, is there any upcoming workshops or conferences you're taking part in that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, if you're in Southern California, I tell people I will come talk to your group anytime, anywhere, as long as I can get there. It's close by. I'm in Southern California. I've been talking at these markets called Mother's Market. I'll be at the one in Costa Mesa on April 9th at 6:30 at night. All of my talks right now are free, so if people can show up for them. But I think I'm also on YouTube, and I have a web page which is my name, DanielTwogood.com. My name is spelled Twogood. So the information is out there. You can email me at drtwogood@aol.com. I answer all email questions. So I'm just here to share information. And once people start looking at their diets very specifically, then they'll find the answers to their conditions.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Twogood, because I'm going to be cutting out chocolate and see how that works out for me. But before we head on out, is there any last words you'd like to leave with our audience?
Sure. There is hope for you because the human body works really, really well. I know that you've been told by your doctors, learn to live with your pain, but the solution's here when you look at the diet. When you try something you haven't tried before, then that's where the answers are going to lie. So there is hope. Change your diets very specifically. And by the way, for you making the change to eliminate chocolate, you'll get much better results if you also eliminate the dairy foods at the same time. So they go hand in hand. They're somehow related. So anyways, the book is Chronic Pain Gone 90 Days. I'm Dr. Dan Twogood. I'm here to share information with you. So Google it, look me up, and email me, and there is hope for your condition.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You're such a blessing out there. I know this is a labor of love because you're giving so much information today. Thank you, Dr. Daniel Twogood, for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Savvy Central Radio is proud to present a live interactive series featuring a new mix to business networking and interviews. Our second event will take place on May 23rd at Tornasol Wellness in Manhattan with our guest, Rochelle Khanna, licensed clinical social worker. She'll share with us her new book, 30 Days of Prayer, Healing Autoimmunity for Women. This event is for health professionals, fitness experts, alternative care professionals, and anyone looking to create optimum wellness in their life. To find out more, book your free ticket today at bit.ly.com/savvyevent, 2. That is bit.ly.com/savvyevent, 2.